The holes that you can get into on Facebook are often deep, and usually there's not much to find down there. But once in a while, you run across somebody who makes you think. And one of those people for me is tonight's guest. We've kind of been on opposite sides of a few issues, chronic wasting disease being a big one. But this gentleman reached out to me. We had a great phone call, found out we have a ton in common, and thought, we need to be doing more of this, regardless of how you feel about what happened to Charlie Kirk, which, I mean, he's a human being, so I hope you feel it was a very horrible thing. Um, he was a person that was trying to debate and have conversations. And tonight we're doing the same thing. We're just hopefully going to learn a little bit from each other and talk about some of the differences that we may have in conservation, but also a lot of the similarities that we share. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I'm Bob Parker. I'm a farmer and rancher and realtor and outfitter here in Texas County, Missouri. So glad to be with you guys tonight.
And don't forget, super cool canoe artist.
Yes.
And that's, I do canoe art. I do metal art. I did a old canoe that I had for years, and it finally got so beat up. And when I was doing some metal art, and I did some metal art on it and put it on Facebook, and it went viral. We had like several 100,000 views and got on the front page of the news leader. They called me and came out. I got on the news stations, and it was a lot of fun. So I still do canoes and other metal art, in my spare time, which isn't a whole lot, but we still do it.
Welcome to the Drifting Outdoors podcast. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about your art too, because I did a little research about you before we hopped on here, and that was the first thing I gravitated towards. Like, dude, I might have to commission a piece because that would look super cool down outside the Polish embassy, the old single wide outside of Montauk. I mean, that's some really neat art that you've done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do mostly wildlife art. I do, lots of white-tailed deer, different poses of deer, and I, do it all on old rusty metal mostly, or canoes, and do all kinds of, I do elk, I do deer, I do birds. I've done all kinds of animals, and because I love wildlife, and it's just a great hobby. Or a great vocation. I've been doing it about 10 years, and I've sold hundreds of pieces now across the Ozarks. So it's been a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. And it so many people love our wildlife here in the Ozarks and across the country. And I've shipped stuff to Canada, California, all over the country. So not every state, but several states, scattered around. So I have a lot of fun with that.
Now, before we start getting a deep dive into like CWD and some of your hunting down in the Ozarks and some of that stuff, I think, Brandon, we should give a shout out to Steve Jones and a thank you for him inviting us to the 90th anniversary banquet for Conservation Federation of Missouri. And I mean, what an amazing event. Like the who's who of conservation showed up for it. And the special appearance by Ding Darling, that guy that performed as him, was incredible. And the monologue of just him telling his whole life story, from the cartoonist to creating pretty much the National Wildlife Federation. I was taken back and just enjoyed every minute of it.
You never got to go to Bruce Sassman's plays, did you? Yeah.
No.
So this is kind of an extension of what Bruce did. So shout out to him and Jan. Of course, they were behind this as well. They do so many amazing things. But yeah, it was amazing to have the reenactor of Ding Darling talking about the founding of the National Wildlife Federation, which then spread out to all these different affiliates. And Bob, you'll come to understand through this conversation that the Conservation Federation has a lot to do with why Shags and I feel the way we feel about so many things. To have Ding Darling's, actor there, and then to have Colin O'Mara, the actual current CEO of the National Wildlife Federation, there was pretty amazing. And the significance of this situation was the Conservation Federation was founded on September 10th, 1935 in that same room. They haven't even changed the tile since it happened. We confirmed with the hotel last night. So Ding Darling actually walked on that floor. We really don't know all the other people who were there. Charlie Callison for sure, Ted Butler, E. Sidney Stevens. But Bob, this is the meeting that formed this organization, this collection of conservation clubs. So back in that day, like there would have been the Texas County Conservation Club, the Dent County Conservation Club. They all joined together and created this federation and then ran the initiative petition to create the Department of Conservation. And that's really the lineage of this. And it was neat last night. We had to do trivia, Shags, and it was really cool to see the people there, like you said. And they unveiled the new logo. So the last logo made it 11 years. I helped design the last logo when I was the director. So I think people were like, what's Brandon going to say about this one? And I got asked that quite a bit, but I think it looks really nice. And I think buzzards are wonderful birds. And
I think it's supposed to be an eagle.
I know, but I was talking to Kurgan about it, the president, and we were laughing. I was like, buzzards do a lot for the ecosystem. You know, they're like the garbage trucks of the roadways. So we should.
Well, a lot of people say that's what just an eagle is too. He's just a scavenger buzzard with a good PR team, which always makes me laugh.
I've seen him jerk big bass out of my lake in my front yard. So they don't just eat the dead things; they make things dead too.
I have a beautiful drive to work. I go basically from Glasgow, Missouri, across the Missouri River, and then into these bottoms. But that drive over the Missouri River on that old bridge every day, it's just gorgeous. And this morning there was a pair of bald eagles that flew over just as I was crossing the bridge. It was like divine. You know, two eagles going down the river at the same time.
Stunning birds.
They are.
We have quite. Not a lot, but we've had as many as 9 bald eagles out around our lake.
Yeah.
Here, at my house. We're not far from the current river. We're not far from Montauk State Park. So you'll have to come see me when you come down sometime, and I'll show you some art and show you around a little bit. If you,
Dude,
you know, you're welcome.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, and you can kind of see what we do, and bring your fishing pole. I'll let you take a quick. We caught some 7-8 pound largemouth out of our lake last summer. So I had some turkey hunters in, and I've got a lake we hadn't fished a lot, and I told one of the kids, this kid was more into bass fishing than he was turkeys, and he got a turkey, and I'm like, man, you ought to go fish in that other lake. I haven't fished over there for years. And he went over there, and they were just slaying big bass in there. It was crazy. I'm like, because I never have done very well, but it'd been years since I'd really fished it much. And golly, his whole family was over there catching, 7-8 pound bass. Just it was awesome. But anyway, that's one of the things.
Well, really quickly, because are you familiar with Big Rock Candy Mountain down there?
Yeah, I'm friends with them. Yeah, no, I've been down there several times.
Is he about to get a wedding invite?
No. I think I've seen. Do you have a half canoe piece of art?
Yes, I had a half canoe there. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Such a small world. Last time I was down there,
they've been at a party at our house before. Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, Roger and Leela, they're great. I'm getting married down there next month. Like
they're from Nebraska. They're from Nebraska. They're from Western Nebraska. I'm from Western Kansas. Is where I grew up. So we got a little bit in common on the Western connection. So anyway, yeah, they're great people.
Man, small world, because it was just the other weekend we were down there, and I saw that half canoe leaned up against the wall out on the patio, and I was like, man, that is cool. I really want one of those. Yeah. And I never got around to asking Roger where he got it, and now you're on the podcast, man. That's small world. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I have a lot of fun. They're kind of a wow piece. People are like, what is that? And I like to put a lot of detail and stuff in them. So, I like it where people need 15 minutes to really kind of take it in, and see all the stuff on there. And I kind of hide little turtles and stuff around on some of them. So it's just fun.
I can tell you, we spent some time looking at everything that was on that. Yeah. I might have to commission a piece from you. That's so cool. Small world.
Well, you mentioned you were from Western Kansas. Yeah. Why don't you kind of give us your roots into the outdoors?
Sure. Yeah, I actually was born in Wichita, Kansas, and was a city boy. But we weren't far from we call it the Arkansas River in Kansas, so the Arkansas River. But I was always down at the river when I was a kid, and then my dad died when I was 7, and we moved to out by Dodge City out on a farm. And so now I'm out on a farm, and I just love the farm. It's like, oh, this is so great. Both my grandparents were farmers. Actually, all three of them. My new stepfather, he was a farmer there south of Cimarron, out west of Dodge City. We lived there a while, and then we bought a farm up by Norton, Kansas, northwest Kansas, and we did a lot of pheasant hunting up there and quail hunting. And I never did kill a deer up there. We had some monster mule deer, but it was very limited to hunt deer out there. We had a few whitetails, but I never could hunt them. I killed my first deer in New Mexico, but when I came to Missouri, I'd never killed a whitetail when I bought a little farm here by Raymondville, and that's when I started the deer and turkey hunting thing, and just kind of learned a lot of it on my own, just trial and error. And so that's kind of what I've done a lot of study, a lot of reading, a lot of outdoor life, a lot of whitetail magazine stuff.
Real
Listen,
quick, Bob, you told me before you bought your first piece of land when you were 13 years old.
yeah, I bought my dad, when he died, he left me a few $1,000s, and a piece came up for sale out there. We were farming up there at Norton. My dad had we farmed a lot of leased land. We had like 800 acres. Then we farmed quite a bit of leased land, and one of them, the guy got old and he was going to sell it. It came up for sale. My dad didn't have the money to buy it, and he asked if I wanted to take some of the money that I had in the bank and buy that property. So I bought and I've always liked real estate. I love real estate, and even then, even when I was a kid, and I bought 160 acres for $16,000, $100 an acre, and when I was 13, and I owned it for 5 years. It paid for itself off the crops. We had real good wheat crops when I had it, and I wanted to move to Missouri, so I had an auction, and because another piece had gone real well at auction, and it brought $80,000 at the auction. This was back in '77, and I'm like, whoa, So I was able to buy a farm here, and I bought a 118-acre farm here at Raymondville for uh, uh, what was it, $66,000, and I had a 5-year-old house on it, old wore out farm, and so we farmed that, added some land to it, and that's and we've been here ever since. We turned that into a dairy farm. I dairied there for a number of years, and killed some nice deer around, and learned deer hunting, and learned a lot about deer and turkey. And then I sold that in '98, and then had 80 acres a couple miles south of that farm. And so we sold the farm. We moved here on this 80 acres, built what we have here, our lodge and our cabins, and a couple of lakes, small lakes, and then bought some land. At the time, there was some timber companies that were really stripping the land around here, as you're probably aware of. They would come in and really cut it hard, and you can pick it up for $300 an acre, $400 an acre. And so I wanted as many acres as I could get, for the money.
Same.
That was kind of, a lot of people, they want the good
the
stuff.
dream,
I want
right?
junk, but I want lots of it. And that's what I did. And I would improve it with food plots and roads, and, get a dozer in there, and, and that's what I've done. And I have about 750 acres scattered around in different pieces, and some really good hunting properties. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and we just try to be a good steward. We take this whole junk land that looks like a nuke went off in it when we get it. A lot of it, not all of it, but most of it. The big tracts was really cut hard, and so we open up food plots, and put ponds, and develop the water resources and stuff like that, and just try to make really good habitat for our deer and turkey, and it's worked well. We have some really good hunting on my properties, and we keep the poachers out, and I let my hunters kill one buck and one doe. Most guys don't want to kill a doe; they want to kill a big buck. And 80% of the guys I have just want a big buck, and so we don't take. I think last year we took 3 does. I think one year we took 13, which we have a good number of does, but I don't really feel like we have too many, because we have a lot of coyotes here, And since the bears showed up here about 3 years ago, my fawn numbers on my cameras have really dropped. I mean, severely dropped. But this year I didn't have bear pictures. I don't know where the bears went, and I have a lot more fawns this year. So I don't know how that's all going to work out, but that's a little bit of what I do. And I've been in the real estate business too. After I got in the real estate business when I moved here, and then I dairied because the real estate business got so bad, and then I got back into it after I sold my dairy farm. So I've done that a number of years, and still do it some, but I'm pretty busy with other stuff too. So
Well,
Yeah,
a guy
Brandon, what
sent.
what
Oh,
were
go
you
ahead.
doing at 13? I wasn't flipping properties, I can tell you that much.
I was tearing carpet out of the housing projects in Gary, Indiana. Yeah.
I was probably
Um,
mowing the neighbor's yard 'cause my dad told me I had to before I could do anything that weekend.
a buddy of ours, Dan Applebaum, sent us a photo today of a sow and 3 cubs in a bear trap. I mean, in a pig trap in Dent County. So they had to release them out of there. Imagine being the guy that had to walk up there and open the chute, for him to come out.
yeah, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, you said you've kind of expanded your free range, which, I think when we first kind of connected, I was questioning you over why are you upset with the department when you're a free range outfitter, which I completely respect. I said that in the post. I said I have no problem with that. Good for you.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
need more people doing that, bringing people into hunting and giving people an opportunity. But if you're going to be, profiting off of the resource, which again, no problem with that. What's the problem? And then we kind of got into a laundry list of things, and we had a really good conversation. I think a lot of, I'm not saying your problem as in you have a problem. A lot of the problem with some of the information that I feel like you've gotten has come from some Facebook pages that are less than factual, but very
Yeah.
loud, very loud.
Right.
There's one individual who I won't even say his name because I won't give him the due diligence of it. I mean, there are some people that are just not right in the head. And I think there's one guy out there that spends a little too much time on Facebook making up, lies about people in the department and conservation. And I feel like the reasoning is he just was never invited to sit at the lunch table. He's tried to write books and they're not, it's like they're not legible. So things like that. And so this vendetta against the department that this one person has led, it's, it's spread a little bit. So you got to give him credit there. Like if you're trying to do damage and spread
Well,
lies and
one
such.
thing,
So
like I say, I've always been interested in property. I've bought and sold properties. I'm a realtor, and so I'm big on property rights, protecting our property and the ability to farm and hunt on our property. I'm a big Second Amendment guy, which I imagine you guys are too.
for sure.
And so I go to the documents. I want to research the documents. I don't want to listen to hearsay on Facebook and take somebody's opinion. And I don't want you to take my opinion. I mean, if my opinion is just my opinion based on nothing, it doesn't mean anything. So I want to see where's the documentation on chronic wasting disease and all that stuff. I've dealt with the conservation department for a lot of years, and we talked about that a little bit, Brandon.
Yeah. Mhm.
The multiflora rose that we deal with, the otter reintroduction, that was a big deal here in Texas County. They said the otters they didn't think they would be a problem. They wouldn't reproduce that much. They reproduced a lot, and they wiped out a lot of our fishing, and a lot of our ponds and small lakes have been wiped out by the otters. Uh, I was on a sand and gravel task force because we had gravel mining in the streams, and they were doing regulations where you couldn't get in the streams and mine gravel anymore. Well, in Montauk State Park, they go in there with track hose and take the gravel out of those pools to create habitat for those trout in there. I mean, because if they fill in with gravel. And my point was that if we stop all gravel removal, the streams are just going to fill in with gravel. I don't argue the point. I know what people have done, farming and logging and all that, has caused erosion and caused things to fill up the streams. And I don't know how to fix that. The gravel's there, but we ought to have some in-stream gravel mining, but they've stopped all of that for the most part. So as a consequence, the fishing's not near as good. The hellbenders are impacted because all of their rock ledges and stuff they live in are covered up by gravel. And I talked to conservation department people about this, and it goes nowhere. And and when we got into the dynamics of the sand and gravel mining, they had an expert, and he was talking about things that happen in the stream dynamics, and it just wasn't right. I mean, all the landowners, people that are around streams, they just realized this guy didn't know what he's talking about. But he was Bill Turner, and he said he was educated at Raleigh at the School of Mines. So I went with another guy, went to the School of Mines, and I asked him up there, I said, I want to see your course books on sand and gravel removing and stream dynamics, what you're teaching, because I don't understand where this guy's coming from. And he said, we don't teach stream dynamics here. I mean, this guy, Bill Turner, was just making this stuff up. And they were talking about desert Southwest studies, and they were talking about Arctic floodplain studies. And it's like, we don't have similar, this isn't apples and apples. We have different kinds of streams down here. But they had an agenda to get everybody out of the streams for any reason. And they said in their little group, and they passed all these regulations. And now we have, float the Current River or float the Piney River or float the 11 Point. They're full of gravel. And, so it's just issues like that dealing with.
So can I ask a question? Is it for sure MDC that is responsible for that, or would that be Department of Natural Resources and the National Park?
MDC was a big part. It was also Department of Natural Resources, DNR, and also the EPA was at those hearings. But they were getting their science from MDC.
Because I wanted when I had my property in Shannon County, there was a small creek that ran through my property that went into Sinking Creek, and I wanted to scoop a bunch. I thought I had a really cool idea to take a backhoe in there and make like a little swimming pool, in the creek.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you have to call DNR. And I mean, I talked to MDC, and they're like, no, you have to call DNR and go through
the
permitting process. So I thought it was a DNR thing. Hey, look, Shags and I, we'll testify to how much the gravel has impacted the river. So we spend a lot of time on the Upper Current River, and it's a different river every couple of years. We have to relearn it.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to be a scientist in that sense, but I hear a lot of people talking about wanting some gravel removed, and I certainly wouldn't have a problem with it if it wasn't impactful to the fish.
Before these regulations, they used to mine gravel out of these streams. They would set up dredging and mining operations all up and down these creeks, and they would use that material. They would use crushers, and they would use it on our highway, and they would also get sand. And they would use the sand for sand sealing projects on the highways. Well, when they stopped all of that, now they're importing all this quarry material that's a much poorer material. Our highways are breaking up. It doesn't last as good. We don't produce much sand down here. Now they got to import sand, so it's costing the state thousands and thousands of dollars to do some of the stuff they used to do. But you're supposed to do a fiscal note when you do these policies, and if it costs the state over $500, you have to detail all the costs and do an estimate. And they said because these gravel regulations cost less than $500, which was a total lie, they don't have to do a fiscal note, and they just got by with that. I mean,
so who's they? Who's they? When you say they?
Well, Department of Transportation.
Okay.
When they did that, I mean, it cost the state millions and millions of dollars, and also millions of dollars in upkeep on our highway. So,
right.
And anyway, like I say, in my experience dealing with the science, I mean,
right.
multiflora rows, grow a living fence, MDC passed those out. I mean, we got Shrishalis, Bediza, They, you know, MDC was part of plant Sharicia lespedeza everywhere to stop soil erosion. I mean, I've got properties that are being taken over, just like thousands of people across the state. The
Mhm.
Sharicia lespedeza is nasty stuff,
Oh, I
and
hate it. I'm covered in chiggers from my waist to my neck right now from mowing
yeah,
it down last weekend. But
yeah,
that was in the
yeah,
fifth. That was like in the 50s when that mistake was made. So
right,
we talked about. I mean, the multiflora rows. Mistakes are made, and I think
right,
they own those mistakes. There's
right. Well, let's get to today real quick. Here's
yeah.
an AFWA report. It's over 100 pages.
Okay.
Have you ever read? Have you heard about this
No,
report?
no. You
Okay.
have to tell everybody what the acronym stands for.
Yes, it's the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies in Washington,
Oh,
D.C.
AFWA.
AFWA.
Yeah, very familiar
AFWA.
with
Have you heard of
AFWA.
AFWA?
Yeah, my girlfriend's headed there next week. She's
Okay.
also got a bear tag, so I'll be down there trying to pull a bear out of the
There you
Ozarks
go.
a couple weeks. So
Good luck. Good luck.
yeah,
I've killed some bears. I like bear hunting.
yeah. I've
Uh,
killed two. I've killed two. They both burned up in the fire though. So
oh yeah, yeah. We talked about
yeah.
that county down there that is crazy. Yeah, yeah.
We found some common ground there too, for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised, but when you said you were kind of in that area, and I knew the names. But anyway, this AFWA report, when you and you can tell I've read this, I labeled everything, I highlighted everything. I go to the document. So this
Yeah.
is the document that tells all the states what they think. This is about CWD. This is what they think it is and how to control it, the best management practices. It's all in this report. That's the stuff I wanted to read, and that's why I have the position I have. And
Can you give us any, like, what's their
I will.
rundown? Yeah, yeah.
I will. um, I sure will. Page 2, it talks about contributors and reviewers. There's 30 fish and game departments and a bunch of biologists and a bunch of scientists that put this thing together.
Okay.
And I think it was like 2017 or something, a few
Because
years
there's
ago.
every state and every province, so or every territory. So Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, they all have a representative to AFWA. Because I've
Okay.
been to those conferences a lot.
Okay.
And then they have
So
They have regional conferences as well. So,
page 4, yeah, 2017, Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies developed practices. So they want to figure out what chronic wasting is, and then they'll figure out, all the regulations they need to do. On page 5, it says CWD is likely spread through the movement of animals. Likely.
mhm.
Now, I've been trained to read. I learned it in school. You
Yeah.
can see my library behind me. I've written 3 or 4 books too that I don't have published yet on hunting. I used to write a column in a newspaper about my hunting. But when they start, and I've been politically involved, and I've gone over regulations. I've been to Jeff City a lot. We've read regulations. We've helped develop regulations. When they use these kinds of words instead of must, or they use may or shall, or those kind of words, you got to read the words. I mean,
Right.
it's really legalese. So when they say it's likely spread, it's like, wait a minute, we got a red flag. And they use this kind of terminology all through this document. And it says, page 10, killing may be effective. It may be effective. Page 10 again, nothing has worked. They need new strategies. Page 10, this threatens hunting and food resources, food sources. Page 10 again, no
Saying
action effective.
CWD affects hunting and food sources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's true, of course. But page 10, no action is effective that they know of in that report. So, and I could spend a lot of time going through that. I've got more where I've gone through the actual document, highlighted it, and underlined. But I read the whole thing. I mean, it took a while to read it, highlight it, make notes, do all this stuff. But that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to go to the source documents. But then in that document, and I'll finish with this before I move on. Here's a list of all the times they use these kinds of words: apparent, appears, believe, can, could be, could potentially, have been shown to have the potential, implicated, likely, likelihood, may not, possibly, potentially.
Sounds like somebody who doesn't want to be held accountable wrote that, huh? Like,
162 times they use that kind of wording.
yeah.
Okay, so
They
being a
shouldn't.
researcher,
Yeah.
that's what I look for. And then that document goes on to say in best practices, because there's a chance that, um, because they don't know, they're saying take every precaution possible. And so the game departments have taken their best management practices like that's really what's going on, and it's not. I mean, those are the recommendations based on, and basically, I'll show you this. It's a hypothesis. I just printed this off about an hour and a half ago because I've got a document that says they have a hypothesis what causes prions. And I thought, well, I don't want to show you that because it's just a photocopy of their document and I don't have the source. But I took this off of Wikipedia and they quote all their stuff. And it says the infectious protein hypothesis has become the prevailing explanation for the causation of prion diseases. They don't know, and they say right here, this is out of one of their publications. This is APHIS and USDA. They say they don't know. It says the prion protein in its normal state is thought to have a role in functions such as cell signaling and neuroprotection. Now listen, it is still unclear what initially causes the normal shaped protein to misfold. Okay, so I'm not arguing that CWD is out there. It affects it's the Alzheimer's in deer is what it is. They don't know what causes it. They don't know what causes Alzheimer's in people. They still haven't figured that out.
Yeah, I was gonna say they still haven't cured cancer, or
yeah.
not.
But CWD, yes, it is a folded protein. They begin to misfold. They don't know the cause, and they admit they don't know the cause, and they're guessing all these things that they're doing. And again, I don't trust the Centers for Disease Control who's behind this stuff. I mean, they came up with all the COVID. These are the same people. I mean, Robert Kennedy just threw a bunch of them out. So these are the people that have been developing all these, what I consider really radical deer killing programs. And not that we shouldn't have wildlife management, scientific wildlife management, but when you go to the source documents, which most people don't do, most people, they listen to the agencies, they listen to their stuff, and they just make it gospel. But I've dealt with this stuff enough, and I've had so many things happen on my farm and in my experience, I always want to go to the source documents. And that's why I believe they don't know where it comes from. They don't know what is effective, but yet they're taking worst case scenario and, they're doing all these really radical policies, and they admit they can't get rid of it. I mean, they admit in the stuff that where you can wipe out all the wild deer and all the tame deer, captive deer, and we're still going to have it. It's going to reoccur. So I think it's probably just a naturally occurring thing like Alzheimer's in people and some of these other folded protein diseases, Parkinson's, and some of those. It's naturally occurring, but there may be something else that we're doing now, spraying. It may be a lack of, it may be a mineral deficiency. It may be, they don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you I don't, but I know there could be other causes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
Very informed.
Very, very. Yeah, we had a great conversation about this. So what I believe is, as we said earlier, mistakes are made. Mistakes were made with planting Sericea lespedeza, multiflora rose, and mistakes were made in 1967 when mule deer were moved into a pen that was infected, full of infected sheep with scabies. And I believe that there's a class of diseases that includes scrapie in sheep, Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease in humans, mad cow disease in cattle, and chronic wasting disease in ungulates, deer, elk, moose. The ones that we deal with most are deer, of course. I 100% believe that it's transported in multiple ways. One, I will go to my grave believing that the high fence industry is largely to blame for spreading this around the country. Simply because of a lot of these conferences I've been in, there's documentation of this. There's documentation of bucks that went from one facility to another because they're like horses. They're taken in a trailer to go breed, and they're spread around, and they could take it with them that way. It also has been spread a lot. Something I could even be guilty of, bringing deer and elk back from out west where it was and spreading it through the Midwest and into the East that way through carcasses. And then birds, without question, move it around. Then they say it can even be taken up in plants from the soil where it was and be transmitted that way. So I'm with you on the mystery of it. I do believe it's very closely related to mad cow disease, and we know what happened there in England. More than 200 people died, and those people had like a genetic makeup that was consistent with each other. So you look at these folded prions and think of them like a key trying to get into a lock hole, and if they're folded just right and they can get in there, that's when that jumped from mad cow disease to humans and killed everybody that got it. I believe that there's no question that it's 100% fatal for the deer that get it. That, as much as I rag on the high fence industry for like the hunting and the shenanigans of illegally moving deer around and growing this like culture of killing fake deer, it's also behind high fence where most of the scientific study and research is done that we need, and I respect it for happening there. So they have infected deer just like they would infect a mouse or monkeys, and they've studied them that way to see like the timeline of death. And we know it's about an 18 to 24 month period of incubation to die. So the population questions are always, well, how can we be having more deer if their prevalence is growing so drastically in Wisconsin, but you're seeing a population spike? And I talked to the Indiana deer biologist about this, who has some differing opinions from our biologists here in Missouri. And it's that window of time where they're still able to breed for 2 seasons before they die. But what the trophy hunters, and I see a lot of my friends who are trophy hunters being the most outspoken about this, what they're going to lose are the older age class bucks. Like, we'll still have deer with CWD. You're just not going to have 4.5 and 5.5-year-old bucks once it becomes prevalent enough to, be 50% of the population in a county like Doug Duran is dealing with. So agree with you 100% that there's no cure right now. I will not, say that I'm super hopeful. I don't really know how to say that. The culling, which I'm sure we're going to get to, man, that sucks. Like I have deer on my property. I sit outside every night. They're in the beans. The idea of those deer getting killed like that is not something I ever want to see happen. But if it had to happen to ensure that, we would have a healthier population in the future, then, I got to believe the people that I believe. And Jason Sumner's, some of these other scientists and biologists, like, these guys they're my friends. And I say that openly, and people will be like, well, you're just going to believe your friends. Well, we became friends because we were in these same meetings and conferences. And kind of came through the same belief system together. So we weren't like elementary school friends. So I think Jason's heart's completely in the right place. I think the way Missouri handles it, and we heard Colin O'Mara say it last night, like Missouri continues to be the model that every other state that he goes to, which is all of them, looks to for leadership and conservation. So, we have money to do things that are progressive. Sometimes they get it wrong. Could they be getting it wrong now? There's a chance. But all I know is if you used to dig moats around castles to try to isolate the castle, if you're trying to isolate these positives, then I think that there's some relevance to doing that. And hopefully we'll have a vaccine or a cure or, something that can be done. But it's a really tough situation right now. And it's understandable why people are so upset about it.
Yeah, and I would honestly rather look back and be like, all right, well maybe we didn't have to do as much as we did, than look back and go, I wish we'd have done more.
Mhm.
And part of it too, to see what Brandon, one of my biggest frustrations with the anti-MDC and the anti-CWD people is when they personally attack or just call them a bunch of bureaucrats. They're politicians and they're getting all this money from the government and lining their pockets. And all it takes is meeting Jason one time and realizing his story of being a small town, mid Missouri boy that just loved the outdoors and then loved deer so much, he decided to dedicate his whole life to becoming a deer biologist. And for people to think that this guy who's now the director of the department is somehow corrupt and doesn't care about the deer herd in our state is just absurd and quite offensive and ridiculous. And I mean, we can break down the numbers too. I mean, even if you look at just the deer management, the idea of what you're supposed to take 20 to 25% of your total population every single year to keep a healthy deer population in your state. Us as hunters don't cover that. And then even with the CWD culling, that's like less than what, 1% of
0.07%.
yeah, 0.07% of what we took. So they're not eradicating the deer. They're not going in and dismantling our herd. They're really not even culling enough to keep it into a management position. We should be probably killing more deer every year in the state than we're actually doing now. So I even try to think of the CWD culling more as just deer management than anything else.
I want to clarify, we're not advocating for culling more deer. We want hunters to kill more deer.
No, that'd be great. Yes.
More deer need to die. And we'll go in a circle here. We'll let Bob back in. But that's another thing that Bob and I talked about was we're all guilty of it. All three of us. We already said it. Like, we don't shoot a lot of does.
Nope.
I mean, it's got to be somebody has to ask me for a deer for me to go out and shoot a doe pretty much at this point. Or I want to donate them to the foster village. So I'll probably kill more this year because I feel guilty now for not killing enough.
Yeah.
Deer. Yeah. But that's a problem is we need to encourage more deer harvest.
Well, in Texas County, we have a lot of hunters. In Texas
You guys
County,
lead the state almost every year.
And
you guys are always like number one.
We have guys that fill their
and those are only
freezers
the
with a
ones
lot
that
of-
are checked in.
Yeah. No,
And
yeah,
during this illegal season.
Yeah.
there's a lot of deer kills in Texas County. And
That's
a lot
true.
of people, I mean, I know people that live on deer all year long. They fill their freezer up, fill everybody's tags. And so really, in Texas County, there may be areas in Texas County that have too many deer, but where I'm at, we really don't. I mean, we've got some decent deer numbers, but I don't feel like we have, you're not seeing a massive, bunch of deer. I mean, I think it's been, a pretty good numbers here, but of course that varies. And that's why I'm all for, if deer need to be taken out of areas, that's great. I'm all for scientific deer management like that, where we're, if there's too many deer, we need to limit the deer. But I know when they did like unlimited tags here, our doe herd got hammered. I mean, our deer herd a few years ago in my area, they took a lot of deer out. They took too many deer out. And like the two main properties that I bought in the last few years, when I bought them, especially one of them, it was a 360 acre piece. and there weren't a lot of deer there. Guys had been hunting on that piece and the neighboring farms and just whacking everything. All the locals would go out there and hunt, and the deer numbers were low. And so I've really had to work to get my deer numbers up, and even my turkey numbers. I mean, they were in a pretty good area, but guys would just go out there and poach, and they would do all kinds of stuff out there. So we
Yeah.
just all that. So I think our numbers are pretty good, but I'm like, I share that. I mean, it makes me shudder to think that they would set up on a little neighbor of mine with corn in the winter and just start blasting everything. I mean, it would decimate a lot of my deer and uh, a lot of my bucks. I mean, and my neighbors too. I mean, most of my neighbors are into quality deer management. We don't shoot little bucks. We let them grow, and we try to keep the does, in a reasonable population. And I think we do a pretty good job where we're at.
Did you go back and did you watch the CWD panel that we did? Did you listen to Doug
I
Dern?
watched some of it.
Did you hear Doug Dern's testimony about how his 430 acres has changed?
I heard some of that. Yeah, I didn't hear it all.
That's a guy that I trust wholeheartedly. I've been to his farm. I'm actually going there in a couple of weekends, and he's heartbroken over the way things are today. They had this incredible trophy property. He's the fourth generation to be managing that land, and they've basically gone back to having to shoot 2.5 and 3.5-year-old bucks because that's as old as they're getting these days. With 50% of the bucks over 2.5 years old have CWD in that county. So he lets, Steve Ranella's kids and other people's kids like come there, and it's become a place to take newbies hunting because there are no big bucks. So that's kind of like my double-edged sword thing here is like, if I was only a trophy hunter, I'd be really concerned about, what do we do to knock the disease back as much as we can so we can continue to expect, larger bucks in the future. Because that's what I'm afraid. Yeah.
I'm all about growing big bucks. I mean, I took my best buck last year. I killed a 15-point, nearly 180-inch buck on my property.
Didn't let the client shoot that one, huh?
Well, it was actually between. I do a 4-day hunt at the beginning and a 4-day hunt at the end of season, and leave a gap in the middle. And I was in the middle, kind of doing some scouting, and had my 308 with me, and he came running by me with a couple does about 50 yards away. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Well, you're selling hunts, so we're not spoiling anything for you. I mean, there's some big deer down there. I'm north of the river, so I'm up in corn country, soybean. I live on a 40-acre piece of land with 35 acres of soybeans, and so we don't have as much woods. I mean, not even close to as much woods. But Shags and I hunted pretty hard down there for 5 years, and we both killed some really nice bucks and saw even bigger ones. I mean, my biggest buck ever was from Shannon County with a bow, and I don't know what it scored, but it was like a perfectly symmetrical 10, certainly over 160. I don't know. I've never scored them, but I do have a few deer in Pope and Young and a few antelope because Jeff Blystone wanted to do it, and I let him. But
I miss hunting.
I've had fun antelope.
I miss hunting those big timber bruisers, man. Down there, the Ozark, getting to hunt the Pioneer Forest, like I look forward to that.
There's some big deer over there, but they are hard to kill. They are.
They are elusive.
A lot of them are nocturnal. The poachers are crazy over there, and
they are.
Yeah, we found that.
They are running deer. They run stuff with their dogs all the time over there.
You don't get much of the dog running in Texas County?
No, very
good.
little. No, we don't.
Good.
Yeah, we're able to. Yeah, I don't know of anything that's a problem over here. And and I love dogs. And I tell people to hunt, if a dog runs through, just let him run through. Don't shoot anybody's dog. But in some of those areas, that's how they've hunted for 100 years. And big woods country, it's hard to, it's hard to get on deer. The deer numbers aren't near as high as they are in places like I'm at over here in Texas County. So I kind of understand some of that, but it's tough when you're over there hunting and you hear the dogs going, it's
Well,
not.
everybody loves democracy until your vote loses, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, it used to be the way that everybody hunted, and now it's not. Now people buy property and put up tree stands and build
yeah,
food plots. And so that's what I tried to do. And you're over there sitting over your food plot, waiting for the deer that's bedded up the mountain to get up and stretch and
yeah,
come walking down for the day. And all of a sudden it's
yeah,
and they just run circles around your stand for 30 minutes and piss on the bottom of your tree. And you got to sit there,
yeah,
and then somebody's with a pickup truck at the bottom of your driveway picking them up. So they
yeah.
ruin hunting for everybody that's trying to do it
It's a
today's way.
problem. It's
Yeah.
a problem. It really is a problem. I mean, I sold a guy had it was 202 acres. It was two tracts that were each 101 acres, and he bought it. His cabin was broke into. Stole everything he had out there, and they're running dogs every time he's out there trying to hunt. And I had to sell it for him. He loved to deer hunt. He had a great property, but he's like, I can't put up with this. I'm out of here, and he left. And you
Some
know,
people don't leave and they get left. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
if you don't leave on your own, they'll leave you.
I mean, they used to run raccoons here a lot, and I had I had like 70 head of yearlings on a place I had rented, and I had to put a hot wire up around a lot of it. And the coon hunters went through there at night and ran a coon right through the middle of those 70 young yearlings, and they just, well, where they blew apart at, I mean, they went for miles. I got a hold of the guy. I found out who it was, and he's like, "Well, my dogs don't run cattle." Well, I know, but they run coons through my cattle, and that's a problem. So I mean, you know, it, it's an issue. I mean, there's two sides to it, and I love
Yep.
guys hunting with their dogs, whatever they want to do, but just don't mess with my stuff. It causes real problems.
No, I mean, I love dogs. I mean, I work with dogs every day in my job,
Yeah.
and duck hunting with dogs, quail hunting with dogs. I've been coon hunting before. It's fun. I just went to Delaware to go rabbit hunting with these guys that raise beagles.
Yeah,
Shout
that's
out
a blast.
to my buddy Taven. I'd love to get into that. I just don't want to take care of the dogs.
Yeah.
There's too many dogs in my life already. But yeah, it's such a it's crazy because the same guys that are like private property rights, and I'm like, yeah, but it's my private property. Isn't
Yeah,
it my
right.
right for you?
Yeah,
Like, you're screaming private property rights, but you're infringing on mine. I don't understand your argument here. And then they're like, I don't know. I could go on and on, but that's
Don't
the point. It's like my private, like anything that you want to do. I've told this 100 times on the podcast. Like, I don't give a shit if you want to kill your deer with a claymore or if you want to choke it to death. Like, whatever it takes. Like, as long as you just do it within like the bounds of the law on
yeah,
your
yeah,
land and don't mess up what I'm doing. Like, let me
yeah,
hunt the way I want to hunt. You hunt the way you want to hunt. If you want to run dogs in a circle on your 100 acres, then by God, run
yeah,
dogs in a circle on
yeah.
your
I
100
don't care.
acres.
I mean,
Right.
the MDC will care, but you know,
Yeah.
I won't.
Right.
As long as
Right.
it's on their property, unless they're slaughtering deer that are, because I can't keep all my deer on my property. I mean, they're running on several properties. I mean, the big buck I killed, they had pictures of him 5 miles away from me.
Well, that's
So,
the beauty of the
you
North
know,
American model of wildlife conservation. And that's what's so hard, Bob, is so many of these people that we see fighting to like tear down the department. It's like Ranella said one time, he's like, when they were trying to sell all these public lands out west, he's like, what is that person that's in favor of this thinking? Like, are they standing at the bottom of the mountain saying, boy, I hope someday I'm never allowed to climb that mountain again? Because when these guys are talking about tearing down MDC, like the alternative isn't better for you. Like having less resources for conservation, unless you're rich enough to buy a big property, and today most people aren't, then you need MDC and you
we
need
need,
this dedicated
and I will
funding.
say that,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to misunderstand
Yeah.
my position. We need MDC. We need a good game department. We need
Yeah.
game wardens. we need those people, but we need good science. We need integrity. We need people that understand constitutional rights and all that. I'm all for all that. But it's when they get out, off the track, and we're going to disagree on the regulations here and stuff. With the chronic wasting disease. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I've read
So
all
far,
the.
I think that's the only thing we disagree on that we found, though. Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean,
yeah.
and
So
you
let me
heard
tell you. So
where I'm
let me
coming
give you
from.
let me give you some big news. Okay,
Okay.
you're now the director of MDC. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to handle this disease? And knowing that, you got to act on it today, but you're also going to be held accountable for years into the future. So you're now the director. You
Knowing
get to
what I
decide.
know,
Yeah, you get
knowing
to
what
make the
I
rules.
know and the research that I've done on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done extensive research on it. I mean, they quote a whole bunch of studies in this AFWA document. I mean, there's pages of the scientific studies that they've done, and I've looked at a lot of those, and I've looked at a lot of the later ones that there's some later studies that they've done that I've looked at. I would say don't do anything on CWD. I know that's going to be a shock to you,
No,
but I don't think
I just got told that by the Indiana State deer biologist.
I,
So
I would
keep
say don't
going.
do anything. Let nature take care of it. There's probably going to be some genetic progress in our wild deer herd to be less susceptible to that. But what MDC is doing, even if what they were doing was the right thing to do, which again I don't think it is, but even if it was, uh, they're doing it in such small numbers that and we talked about that some, Brandon, that
Mm-hmm.
and you said you had brought that up. It's like
Yep.
that, how's that going to really affect this problem? So I would now EHD is a huge problem. I don't know how they fix that. I wish they'd take the
Yeah,
resources.
we'll get to that one next. We can talk about that, but let's keep
Yeah,
on
but
CWD.
that's where I'm at with everything that I've looked at. I think it's probably environmental or nutritional,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not really going to affect it that way. I think we just need to manage our deer numbers scientifically. Get deer numbers and areas that have too many deer and areas that don't have enough deer. Manage it that way, and quit all this. Quit creating all this bureaucracy around CWD,
Mm-hmm.
which, according to the documents, and again, we're probably disagreeing here, but according to the documents, they don't really know what causes it. Oh, and again, it is a problem. I mean,
Yep.
there are deer that die from it. I mean, I've heard stuff that it's not 100% fatal in deer. That there's deer that have lived a long time with it in captive herds, like over
And we
game.
talked about that too. And I said back in the 80s, they
But I don't
used to
know.
sell
I don't know exactly on that. Go ahead.
they used to
Yeah.
sell penile growth pills in the back of Playboy in the 80s, and some guys got suckered on that too. So the people who caused the problem now saying that they have the cure, I have issue with that.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
and I don't know. There
Can you
is a
see
guy I've
that?
listened to that talks about that. He's doing genetic work, and it may just be. I don't know. I don't
This
know.
is what the Indiana deer biologist drew for me on a piece of paper, and I asked Jason Sumners about it, and the Indiana deer biologist said, look, they just don't have the funding to address CWD. That's the absolute truth. They also don't have the funding to have business cards. So if you don't think they have the funding to have business cards in Indiana, they don't have the funding to put the fish in the lakes. They don't have the funding to put the crops in the ground on your conservation areas over there. So that's another reason why it's so important that, we fix what we have instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So he said by doing nothing, and learning to live with the disease, the prevalence is going to grow in Indiana faster. He said culling does work at slowing it down, but ultimately we're all going to end up in the same place. And I talked to Sumners about that. I called him after our phone call, and he said, look, we know for a fact that when we go into these hot spots, we do have success in knocking it back. And that's where they're that's where they're going in and setting up after finding, positives. And I asked him specifically about that one in Texas County. And he said, all we know is that that is our best chance. Like when we first find it in a place, that is our best chance to try to eliminate it. And does it work every time? Clearly not. It's still starting to spread. Does it work some of the times? Probably. So it's again that double-edged sword. But I unfortunately do believe that no matter how hard we hold the dam back, eventually it will be overtaken, unfortunately. So
Do you know if they found any more CWD deer when they're killing in Texas County? I mean, I heard they didn't
no,
find any more positive.
I did not. I didn't ask him that, but
Yeah.
you know, the offer to introduce you still stands, and you can ask him yourself. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, it's an unfortunate deal, and we're seeing, you know, we're seeing the effects of what happens when you just let it go. We've seen it in Wisconsin. My good friend Doug tells me through, you know, through heartbreak what it's like to live on that farm today compared to when him and his brothers were killing giants back in the 80s and
What
90s.
what if it is a mineral deficiency and everybody stops feeding mineral? I mean, that would make it worse. What if it's
Oh yeah,
something
no.
that's in the soil that maybe just a certain area has more of the Alzheimer's in deer, and you can kill a bunch of deer there, but then the
Mhm.
deer population will go back to those levels if it's something in the ground. I mean, those are the kind of questions that I ask. So, I mean,
Those are questions that I've heard asked. So I started going back and looking at some of the documentation that I have on this. So talking about the Conservation Federation, that crazy dude with those Facebook pages always wants to say I'm a Jeff City lobbyist. I was the executive director of CFM from 2014 to 2019. We already explained what that is. Did I lobby in the Capitol? Absolutely. I lobbied on you know, keeping our rivers accessible up to the high water mark so you could float and camp on gravel bars, the park soil and water conservation sales tax, all kinds of stuff. Deer's just, you know, one thing that we, you know, we
right.
lobby for. Um, but yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there on where I was going with that. But
Well,
uh,
I'm really glad that
yeah,
we have this conversation. I'm really
yeah.
glad that other people can look at, kind of both sides and where I'm coming from, where you're coming from, and because I know, when Jason Isabel came down to the county, had his meeting. I mean, he speaks
Mhm.
for an hour, and then we get 3 minutes, and it's taken a lot more than 3 minutes for me to explain my issues, I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You guys have been great to visit with, and I appreciate that. And I know you're concerned about the deer. I mean, I know you love
Yeah,
the
we
deer
are.
like I love the deer. So,
Hmm.
we'll just continue to, I mean, maybe our paths will cross.
We're gonna get you to come to a CFM meeting and see these people, because that's what, like, in that room last night, you know, it's so interesting to see. And I think in that room it'd be safe to say that, you know, I'm one of the biggest hunters. There's many people that don't hunt at all. That was the real beauty of it. Let me just say it like that. The real
Right,
beauty of working at the Conservation Federation, by the time I left there, there was 105-ish affiliated organizations. And that was everything from the Missouri Bowhunters Association to the Big Bucks Club of Missouri to the Naturalists to the State Parks Association, cavers, scuba divers, trout fishermen, like all under this one umbrella, and everybody collectively working on kind of bigger issue items, you know, making sure that we maintain dedicated funding. Colin talked last night about how Roy Blunt and Johnny Morris have been the leaders of the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, which would basically be over $1 billion per year for state agencies. They're trying to find ways to bring money to other states similar to Missouri. I think the sales tax is an amazing way of collecting it, because everyone pays into conservation. In most states, deer hunters carry the weight. Deer hunters and fishermen buy licenses and carry the weight, and everybody else gets to go out and see the eagles that we were talking about for free. And you know, they get to enjoy the clean water and all that for a lot less than we do as sportsmen. So I love the idea of spreading that model nationwide and seeing, our leaders like Roy Blunt and Eric Schmidt today. I actually got to present Eric Schmidt with the Conservationist of the Year award when he was still in the state Senate. Same with Kurt Schaefer. I gave him the same award. He's now the director of DNR. So we've got some very conservative, sensible people involved. And I just, yeah, I could go on and on. One thing I asked you to do a couple of things. Sounds like you kind of skipped the homework on watching on the video. Did you get the Man and Wildlife in Missouri book? Did you look that up at all?
No, I haven't. No.
You gotta look this up. So there's this version. I want this book to be back out in print. There's this version. There's a hardcover version. They're just hard to find, but you can get them
Man
online.
and Wildlife.
Man and Wildlife in Missouri by Charlie Callison. And then this is my old version here, this tattered one. With you can kind of see how like I just go through and everything's highlighted and starred. And I got this book early when I got into conservation in Missouri, and the history of it. This North American model, this Missouri model. There's nothing like it in the country. It's amazing, and we have to protect it. And the guys that are so mad about one thing, they're probably happy about 10 other things. They're just not realizing that it wouldn't exist if it weren't for the same, pot of money and people that they're trying to tear apart. So,
well, yeah. they've got a real mess with this CWD
they do.
policy. I mean, it's not everywhere I go out here, and I'm in a very rural part of the state, they have a huge problem, and people do not feel like they've been part of the process. So they're creating a PR problem. I don't think they have any idea of the monster they're creating, because it is turning into a monster.
Well, they do, because Shags and I are over there saying, "Hey, we got to do things about this." Yeah,
so we're working together.
Yeah, I think they're aware of it too.
They're aware. Yeah.
But I did want to point out about something about earlier, because it's my understanding, like they'll come to a landowner and ask permission if they can come and do some CWD culling, and then ask them how many deer they're comfortable taking. Like they don't just show up to your property and be like, put some corn out there and then shoot all the deer that come to that corn pile over a week-long process. And you can even tell them, hey, don't shoot any bucks, just shoot some does and stuff like that. I got the impression that they want to work very closely with landowners during the CWD culling.
Yeah, they don't come on your property without permission, but yeah, I have heard guys tell me this, that they denied them on their property. And one guy, he found had a 5-acre neighbor they set up there and wiped out. According to him, they wiped out. He said, we didn't hardly have any deer left when they got done.
Yeah. How do you feel about
that? And those are internet stories, but Facebook stories, but people read Facebook.
Well, I think it's the PR, like you were talking about earlier. They have a serious PR issue where there are a lot of these stories that I think you got to kind of take with a grain of salt. I'm sure the truth, I'm not saying anyone's lying, but I'm sure people like to exaggerate, and I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle, because we're deer hunters too. We like to exaggerate on certain things, but we're outdoorsmen.
15 points.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you should have seen it. Oh, it's so big, or oh man, I'm so close. Oh, biggest fish I've ever seen, biggest buck. But I know the truth is in there somewhere in the middle. And yes, NBC, and I have a feeling they're going to be working on it this fall and doing some things of trying to talk with the public and doing a better job of getting the rural areas opinions and working with them in the future.
I hope they do. Our local agents, we've got a couple agents here, and I've worked with one of them quite a bit. He's been great. And, I knew his dad in the real estate business. I showed his dad property when he first came here many years ago. And he's a good guy. He's worked with me. I like guys like that. I need guys like that when we have a poaching issue or something. We need a good department. And
how many agents do you think said, man, I hate hunting and fishing and I hate wildlife, so I'm going to become a conservation agent. Like none of them, right? And back to the deer hunter thing, I think Shags represents the average deer hunter. He buys a license and goes maybe 4 days a year, kind of at the most,
Yeah.
kills a deer often, but not every year, and doesn't really care. But just enjoys going hunting and being with his uncle and the whole thing. So I think that represents the average deer hunter, of which we have over 520, somewhere between 520 and 550,000 licensed deer hunters per year. Collectively, those hunters buy about 1.2 to 1.3 million tags. So that'd be like, Bob, you buying 3, Shags buys 1, I buy 2. That's what it averages out to. But then you get guys like, God bless him, our good friend David Westmoreland, who was at the CWD thing and has kind of, gotten aggressive afterwards. That guy has at least, Shags has been in his house, what, 40 bucks over 160 on the wall. He's the greatest big buck killer I've ever seen.
I think
And
it might be more than 40. Like it was,
his argument is like, well, what about the guy who bought the $2.5 million farm and growing deer? And I'm like, look, man, like that is so far at one end of the spectrum. And he thinks that's what like every hunter is, because he's like in this all-star class of the highest league of hunters in the world. And he can't look at Shags and accept that Shags is just as important as a hunter as he is. And that's where we all get caught in our silos, and we think everyone thinks like us. And that, like, so that the same knucklehead that we're talking about on that that makes up those Facebook pages, he went back and forth with one of our buddies the other day, Joseph Hawkins, and let me find, Joseph sent me a couple of these, because I'm banned from all these pages. So Joseph sent me this, and I don't ever say anything rude. I just spit facts. So this guy is like, a list without Joseph said, a list without statistics and citations is nothing but hyperbolic opinion. I'm not publishing any list, but posed a question: where do you get these figures to compose your list? He said, why do I need to prove anything to you? Do your own research. I do every day. Yada, yada, yada. And then he says, like, make me laugh. Why are you even on this group? And Joseph said, for the same reason. You make me laugh. And it's like, why are you even on this group? Like, You're not welcome here. We all think the same. We all are just here to say the same things, complain about the same things, bitch about the same people, bitch about the same things. And you're not welcome if you have an outside opinion. And that's the problem with this country, and we see it play out. And I do think there's like an IQ correlation to it. There's no denying that the dumber people get sucked into it, and then they feel like they're validated. They've found their place in the lunch table, that they're allowed to say whatever they want to say at. And that's how this misinformation gets spread. And it's the modern day mob, these little modern day mobs. So be careful. Any Facebook post that has capital letters, if they're talking in capital letters, Bob, they're full of shit.
I try not to do that very often.
Well, I mean, I just appreciate, this is what I'm talking about. I love Bob coming on here, and we're just having an open conversation. We may not necessarily agree on every single thing, but we can agree that we love the state of Missouri. We love the deer and the outdoors. And that's what I appreciate. And I've said it a bunch on this podcast too. And it kind of goes back to like, you can disagree with some of the things MDC says, but the thing that really bothers me the most are those that are calling to burn it all down.
Right.
Like, take the funding. We need to start from scratch. They can't be trusted. It's like, dude, that department does so much good for this state when it comes to helping kids get in the outdoors and all the free programs. And just because you're upset with the way they're handling CWD, because they killed 4,000 deer in a year trying to keep CWD at 1%, and now you want to burn the whole thing down. It may be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And I just find it so frustrating.
Yeah.
I get so angry. And that's kind of why I had to get out of the comments section, because it was just
Yeah.
destroying my mental health. It's like, I can't do it anymore because you guys make no sense. And then you get called a libtard and woke and like a simp for MDC
Yeah.
and bootlicker. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm
Yeah, the
wrong.
Democratic Party really thinks they have me by what everybody says about me on the other side. Like I'm a secret operative.
We see this differently. My experience with, MDC that I've shared on here, I was in the dairy business, and I was between the prices and the regulations, pretty soon you're like, I shouldn't be in this business anymore. I have no control over this business. So, you get into the real estate business, more and more regulations on the real estate business. I get into the hunting business. Now we got more and more. Now we can't, now we can't do this. We can't do that. Now more and more regulations that's impacting my business. And again, when I do the research, it's like, I don't think they got the goods on this thing. I think they're guessing at it. Again, that's my position.
Yep.
But so that's kind of where my angst comes from. It's like, I get frustrated dealing with, some of this stuff.
Well, and believe me, I worked for the DNR in Indiana for a couple of years back when I was much younger and got to work in state government. And as much as I defend my friends that work in state government, that don't get me wrong, like we could turn the heat up a little bit and work a little harder. At least when I was there, when they say a form takes 4 to 6 weeks to get returned to you, but a private company can do it in 2 to 3 days, like those sort of things. So I hear you saying things about MoDOT, Department of Ag, Department of Natural Resources, MDC. So you're an equal opportunity, like state agency.
I'm like,
could use an improvement.
Them all pretty much because I deal with them all.
So that's just less. You're less government. You're a less government guy, right?
When I had my dairy, I wanted to bottle my own milk, so I bought a property. I bought a commercial property to bottle my milk in, and I had DNR come out to tell me what I was going to have to do. And he said, Bob, you're going to have to do so much. He said, and DNR is coming in with heavy fines on guys like you. He said all their agents have been. Now this is the DNR guy told me this. Mm-hmm. This was 30 years ago, but he said they're raising revenue through these fines, and he said I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put it out there and do it. I mean, this is, again, he was retiring soon, and he's telling me all this stuff. People don't feel like there's accountability in MDC. I mean, they get their money from tags, which we can't control the price of, deer tags or any kind of license. And then they get all this tax money, and we really feel like there's they're not in touch with us out here in the country, with the folks that are, and there really is that feeling among many people. They're just not in touch. We're losing our hunter numbers, which I know I'm sure you're concerned about.
Yeah, we're under 5%.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that I'm just giving the cry from the country.
So, I mean, my counter to that though, is like, if I come down to Texas and Dent County, it's to do things in the outdoors. I come to Montauk because of the trout in the current river. I've got a turkey. I got the World Slam of turkeys, full body mounted in my living room, all 6 of them in my Eastern. I killed it right out of licking on the Big Piney. Literally, I was with Ray I and all these turkey hunters, and on opening day, we were looking across the Big Piney, and all these birds were strutting in this field. And I said, man, I wish I could hunt over there. And Ray I goes, you can hunt over there if you can get over there. The river was all flooded. And I said, shit, man, I'll get over there. So I got across that river in the dark in the morning, impressed all them old timers, killed that bird, brought it back. It was like 24 pounds. I got it mounted, and that kicked off my getting the World Slam mounted. So I love that country. But if it wasn't for what I consider to be, smallmouth fishing on the Big Piney, goggle eye on the Big Piney, turkeys in that area, good deer hunting, then what else would draw people there? I mean, right now there's nothing else. So leaning into it is where I would be. And, you know, I think you got to give MDC credit across the board and then take your shots at the things that you're upset with. I think that's what Shags is trying to say. Like, we can't burn it all down. I mean, nobody's
I don't want to
arguing.
burn it all down. I
Yeah.
just I wanted to
Because if we
become
get
more
rid of the sales
accountable, more in touch
tax,
with the folks, and go
yeah,
more by the science that I'm looking at, is
yeah.
what I would like.
But you're an
And listen to
anomaly,
the
man.
folks.
You're an outlier. Most people aren't looking at their AFWA documents and using, you know,
No,
tabs. Most people
I'm
aren't.
a real rarity, baby. Believe me.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you are.
No,
And
they don't do the research like I do.
so that's why you're on the podcast and they're not. But yeah, I
Well,
mean, that's exactly right. So you have very good information. Your opinions are backed up with some facts, and you have like conviction for what you believe. And you know, I think we proved tonight that we believe most of the same things, and we can agree that CWD sucks. We don't know what the outcome's going to be in the long term. I just think doing what we can to hold it back in certain areas is a best case scenario at this point. And doing nothing, you know, if the guy from Indiana is right, we're going to end up there anyways. But man, if the zombies are coming, I'm going to try to shoot it before they get me, you know, like that's kind of where I'm at.
I'm with you.
And MDC has even said they know there's not a cure, that's what they're doing. They're playing a waiting game. They're trying to keep it at 1% in hopes of eventually coming up with the cure or the next step. And I've kind of said that I feel like they've done too good of job just because the percentage is so small. But Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. Where is it where they said there was no return? Because we're at about a 1%.
Yeah, if
everyone
prevalence gets over 5%,
is a 5, and then there's no turning back. And that's the thing. Everyone sees all this.
That's right here. You know,
Yeah.
that's when that starts to go up.
He's showing a graph for everyone that's just listening and not on YouTube.
There's another big part of this, I believe, in my opinion. I mean, they're spraying all over the Ozarks now. They're spraying pastures. They sprayed timber years ago. I mean, most cattle farmers are spraying their fields for brush and weeds and all kinds of stuff. They're spraying fence rows. I mean, the electric company's spraying everything. So we have a lot. We didn't used to have that going on, all this spraying. And now there's a lawsuit going on right now on Parkinson's, and that's a folded protein disease. They're saying that, and again, I don't know. I'm not saying it's true, but there is a huge lawsuit going on right now. They're saying that paraquat, which is a herbicide, is linked to Parkinson's. So again, going by their documents where they don't really know what causes that protein to fold, could it be herbicides and stuff that's going on? Because I know I know a lot about it because I've been here 50 years doing what I do. And I know when people spray, I have a neighbor who sprays his farm next to me. He used to have a ton of turkeys on it. He doesn't have the turkeys near like he used to. And I've heard that from numerous people, that when you start spraying, that may just be because they're killing the weeds that have the bugs and the plants.
They're killing the food. Yeah.
Killing the food.
I'm with you 100%.
Maybe they don't like the taste of it, or, but we've got a turkey decline in this state, and we need to be looking at some of that stuff. I don't spray on my properties, and I still have good wildlife numbers, and I won't spray on my property.
Another thing to think about is, I mean, when you're trying to manage the entire state of Missouri, and when you're in Texas County compared to when you're in Howard County, you might as well be in two different states. This is just an ocean of agriculture. It's beautiful where I live, but it's an ocean of agriculture. And where I lived in Indiana, we only had 2 acres, but I started hunting in like 90, 91, 92. I was born in 79. So I was 10, 11. I was able to go out on my own. I got my own shotgun for my 14th Christmas, and I got a bird dog, a Weimaraner named Remington. We had these abandoned railroad tracks on the back of my property, and I had permission to go wherever I wanted to go. And those railroad tracks, like the old tracks, just ran through ag fields, but there was probably between 10 and 20 yards of just brush, brambles, and brushy brush along the railroad tracks, and I could kill my 2 pheasant limit every time I went. Just about every time I went. And when I go back there now and walk those tracks, it looks like I went into a time machine. It doesn't look different. Like it looks the same. And there isn't a pheasant in the county. So when I hear people talking about like quail population declines, and I hear people talking about pheasant declines and now turkey declines, which is a very real thing, and people are talking about predators, certainly part of the problem. But I think they don't talk enough about spraying. I think you're right
I
on.
agree.
I think they're killing. I think they're killing the food for the birds.
Well,
So
did you guys see the study that people who lived within 1 mile of a golf course were 126% more likely to get Parkinson's because of all the chemicals they use on
no
the
shit.
golf courses?
My parents live on the 15th fairway.
Yeah.
I grew up out in irrigation, row crop country, wheat country, south of Cimarron, west of Dodge out there. That's all crop land out there. And when they started spraying, we lost our jackrabbits, our turkey, our pheasant numbers got slammed.
Yep.
And my dad always said it was the spraying.
Yeah.
And they were spraying paraquat everywhere. They would use it in the road ditches to kill weeds. And, I have cousins that still live out there, and they've had all kinds of health issues. And as a matter of fact, I talked to one a couple days ago, and she's dealing with all kinds of issues, and has for years. And I just think it's just, she farms right along with her husband. She's on tractors and combines and doing it all, and has done it all her life. But she's really struggling. I mean, that area is real well known for lots of sickness and lots of issues like that. So, but they're not spending a lot of money looking into that. I don't think. So,
well, that's also a collision between conservation and agriculture. And in my experience, that's one we're going to lose every time. Agriculture rules the day. And that's why it's so important for us to work with agriculture as conservationists. Real proud of Tyler Schwartz, not only pulling off that amazing 90th anniversary party, but he's announced today that he'll be the co-chair of the Park, Soil, and Water renewal efforts. So, we did that in 2016 when I was still at CFM, and now Tyler gets to do it. I got to hand over a bunch of old documents, and I'm excited for our buddy to do that, because Conservation Federation and Farm Bureau together are the two leaders of that. So it's really cool that that bridge comes together. And, that's what I did for 5 years with Raceline is I looked for the intersection of conservation, energy, and agriculture. And I love that space, and I love bringing that together because
I'm all for agriculture. I'm all for farmers. I am one. And
me too. I got 35 acres of beans.
Gotta be,
Well, and you want to talk about following the money in deep pockets, go up against Monsanto Bayer.
Yeah, you're not winning.
Trying to do some research.
I don't want to do that.
Them poisoning all our wildlife.
And that's why I'm very careful to not say that I know definitively anything,
Right.
I really don't. I just know that there's some stuff going on with.
Well, I mean, they're starting to
Parkinson's, but I don't know the details.
They're starting to connect some dots, but yeah, that's. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go up against those guys yet.
No, those guys would ruin you. There's no way. It's like going up. I sued the railroad one time. They took out an easement to one of my farms. I found out that was really stupid. When I found out they had a skyscraper full of attorneys in St. Louis, and it's like, here's Bob. They just
You're like, I got this document. I got this document.
Went out and took out my easement. It's right here on my deed. And I hired an attorney, and they're like, 2 years later, I'm just shelling out all this money, and it's like, I'm done. They'll wear me out.
They'll beat you into submission. That's what they beat you. That the legal system will beat you into submission.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, Bob, we're kind of coming to the end of this, and I don't know if you've watched any of our podcasts all the way to the end, but what we have here is a vintage bait bucket from a Midway Antique Mall. We like to wrap up the podcast with a random question submitted by fans, friends, family of the show. And very rarely does it have anything to do with conservation. It's just kind of a fun way to wrap up the podcast. So
I like having fun.
Yeah, if you have a question that you want to ask, you can submit it by sending us an email, info@driftwoodoutdoors.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram, Driftwood Outdoors, or leave a comment on the YouTube like Bob did, and now he's on the podcast, YouTube TV. The question comes from Mark Knutson. Oh, could be a fun one. How do you decompress from stress?
I mean, fishing and hunting, right? I mean, although that makes me more stressed than anything sometimes. So,
Yeah, fishing for me sometimes is not stressful at all.
oh,
I mean,
especially if you got
the best
two
relief is
flies on at
whacking
once.
a 15-point buck. I mean, that's great relief.
Man, I'll be honest here. I'll sound like I'm trying to win points, but it's pretty true, and it's a really nice kind of new in my life experience. But my girlfriend, I just like spending time with her, and like nobody else has ever been able to bring me as much peace as she does. And you know, for whatever, she's like my therapy bear. Like I just like when I get around her,
therapy blanket.
yeah, she just has something magical about her that calms me down and makes me happy. And I think it's spending time with Lauren.
Well, I mean, I've been on this health and wellness journey this year and been eating better and going to the gym every day. And I can't say that I'm in the gym and it's relaxing because I still hate going every single day, but I do it. And then afterwards, I've found I'm a lot less stressed. So I know it helps, but it's not like I'm in there throwing the kettlebell around going, oh God, this is helping with my stress. I'm usually sitting there going, God, how many more reps? Let's just get this over with. But I have found that's helped me quite a bit with dealing with everyday stressors.
So today was day 10 of keto, and I'm down 7 pounds. I was 210 today, so I got 5 pounds to go. But I'm gonna go. I'm having big fish fry on Sunday, Bob. So I'm gonna break it on Sunday for sure. That's my my first cheat day.
Out for it.
You guys need to come see me when you're down there. I'd love to have you, show you around. We can talk a little bit. And
for sure.
Bring your
how much do you charge for one of those half canoes?
I get $1,500 for a half canoe.
All right.
What if you supply your own canoe?
What's that?
What if we supply our own canoe?
Well, I get canoes for $100 and it's got 2 hats on it.
Okay. That's fair. Hey, if you're, I'm gonna ask a favor of you. I've got, you know, my girls and they got boyfriends, and I need a old canoe trailer. Like I know they're laying around down there in yards sometimes.
And I had to make one. I had to make one to all my. I've done some full size canoes. And
I want the ones like they got at Acre, you know, not Acres.
Yeah,
anymore,
I know. I
like
made one. But
Jadwin. Yeah.
I
want one of those. Well, if you ever come across one for sale, hit me up.
Yeah.
So how do you decompress?
I decompress doing art. I did a piece this morning. You know, I was stressed being on the show with you guys. I knew you were going to torture me and, you know, get me in a headlock, and you wouldn't let me breathe for a while. And so I'm all stressed out. So I made this really nice elk piece out there, you know, an elk in the mountains. And I, you know, my breathing kind of slowed down. My blood pressure kind of leveled off. And, you know, I kind of got in the zone for the show. So, you know.
There you go. Very zen-like of you. Very zen-like.
Very zen. Very the dude abides. Very dude of you. So, what's the final thought? The final cast of the pod?
Thank you, Bob, for reaching out. Seriously, you know, we could have just like gone our separate ways and been like, that guy's, you know, different than I am, so I'm not going to talk to him. And clearly, we have more in common than we don't. And I think this is just a good example of how you can make a friend out of somebody that you talk to and figure out like, hey, I don't see it that way, but that doesn't make you the worst person in the world, right? We agree on most things. So I'm thankful for the lesson.
It says a lot about you guys too, to be willing to do that. And I appreciate that a lot. And I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of get my side out there and represent the little people out here in the country that feel the way that they do. And so, thanks so much for that.
Really. My pleasure. Our pleasure. How many people in Texas County?
There's about 25,000 people in Texas.
So Howard County's got
county in the state.
Yeah, we've got 8 in Howard County, and I get called a city slicker like all the time. We have 0 stoplights. I've never lived in a city in my life, and I'm Yeah, and I don't want to disclose all my politics, but I mean, I vote one way, and I've never lived in a city, and I get called the opposite of everything all the time.
Yeah, I grew up in a town of 1,500 in the hills of Oregon, but I too am a giant city slicker, and yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
You libtard.
Yeah, I get called all sorts of stuff.
Raymondville is 350 people, I think. So there aren't any stoplights. There's a couple of stop signs, so that we're trying to get
I know
those.
there's stoplights in Houston though, and Licking. Like we don't have a single stoplight in Howard County, not one.
Yeah, no, we have several. Between Licking and Houston, and let's see, does Kabul? Kabul doesn't have a stoplight. They've got stop signs.
I've really enjoyed you coming on here too, Bob. This has been really cool and a great conversation. And we've had people too reach out saying you need to have someone on there that doesn't see eye to eye with you guys in CWD. And I mean, you've done an amazing job, and this has been a really good conversation. And quite honestly, I feel like I'm looking at Brandon in the future with your library behind you, and then with all your papers and your tabs and everything highlighted, and then he had his book all highlighted.
Well, I don't know. It's
there's my book collection.
Yeah,
it's pretty entertaining. But yeah, thanks for coming on here. I hope we didn't strangle you too much. Or
no, my blood pressure's doing pretty good right now.
Well, where can people go if they want to come down there and hunt on your property? You do trips, so
yeah, I'm on Facebook. Trophy Quest Outdoor Adventures is the name of my outfit. Trophy Quest Outdoor Adventures, and they can just get on my Facebook page and send a message or something, and I'd be glad to. I'm an old school. I'm not big into texting and stuff. I do voicemail and I do phone conversations. That's how I can answer questions, and so I like a phone number to make a phone call and touch base, and I try to do that with everybody, and I try to make those calls pretty soon. So
awesome. Same thing with the art. Can they find you on Facebook for your canoe?
Yeah,
people are going to want to see these canoes now
on Facebook. I put a lot of my stuff on there about Parker Fine Art.
I'll put the links in the show notes too. So
okay, yeah, I'm gonna have I think I'm only doing one show in Eminence down there, and it's like the 13th of October or something.
Oh, that's a great we've been to that, Shags. That's that big fall
I'm gonna
festival.
have a booth down there. I'll be there, so come down and see me. We'll have canoes and flat art and deer and elk and different stuff.
When you're down there, pick up the newspaper. So you said you wrote a outdoor column. I've published an outdoor column every week since September of 2006, and it's in the Shannon County paper every week.
I was in the Licking paper for 3 years, and I ran out of stories. I've got a bunch more now.
I haven't missed a week.
I'd be out hunting, and I'd be sitting there, and I'd be making notes on my phone, ideas for stories, and I'd do 6 or 8, and I'd write those, and then I'd brainstorm again. And I finally, it's like, I have written about everything that I think would make a good story. I mean, I have lots of stories, but I don't want to do anything that's like sucks. So anyway, but I put them all in a book. I wrote them all in a book, but I haven't got it published. So, but it's all about turkey hunting. I've hunted Africa. I've hunted bears. I've hunted, quite a few states and stuff.
Well, I see your blessed buck right there behind you.
Well, I feel like we're gonna have to have a Bob Volume 2 episode where we talk about all his adventures.
Yeah, I sure could. I love to talk about it. Yeah, I've been to Africa several times, and very cool. How long is he? 24.
I didn't measure him. I don't know. He's not as big as my cousins. My cousin killed a bigger one. That's all that matters.
What day are you going to be in Eminence again with your art?
I think. Hold on, let me look real quick. I don't want to say it wrong here. Calendar.
Because we're going to be down there at Big Rock October 11th.
It's the 11th.
Oh man, I'm going to put that in there. We're going to be down in that area because Savannah and I are having our last meeting with Leela and Roger about our wedding at the end of October on the 11th.
You're going to get married out there?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I may have to come down and meet you.
No, we have an Airbnb out here at our place. So
in Eminence then.
But you'll probably stay in one of their cabins. But we do
a
cabin.
Shags has a place in Montauk Village right next to the park.
Yeah.
So
Well, we'll have to
Yeah,
come down. I'll come down and see you in Eminence that weekend. Then
oh, that
after
would be
we get done
awesome.
meeting
I'd
with
love it.
them,
I'd
that'd be
love
great.
it.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you so much for jumping on here. Gear review coming up next. Brandon,
yeah,
into the podcast, the beginning of the gear review. What are you reviewing for us today?
it's out of print, and I'm gonna try to change that. I know who has the rights to it. I'm not trying to make any money off of it. I just want it to be back out and available for people. But we talked a lot about CFM and the 90th anniversary. Charlie Callison was also a director of CFM way back in the day. And this book, Man and Wildlife in Missouri, I mean, it tells you the whole story on how this Missouri model came to be and really how this movement happened across the country and how central Missouri was to it. So it's truly an amazing book. Let's see what year it was first published. So there's E. Sidney Steve. You know, it's first published. Well, this is the 60th anniversary, it says, and it was 1981, but that math doesn't work. So it had to be after that. But it's an old book, but I just can't say enough about it. So if you can find a copy of Man and Wildlife in Missouri, get it.
Well, this is funny because I don't think we've done back-to-back books for a gear review. But after
Have you ever done a book?
I think I've done a book before, but not both of us doing a book.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah, I was gonna say you've done books.
yeah, I'm just saying both of us doing a book. But
Oh,
after the
gotcha.
CFM event, we were blessed with this amazing the Trails Across Missouri, the Katy and Rock Island by Dan Burkhart. And it's just got stories from everyone from David Kelly, the director of the Missouri State Parks, just talking about our beautiful trail system that we have here in Missouri. And the photographs are incredible. And it's just fun to have so many different authors part of it. And just the history of the trails and the future. And just some of the photography, because I'm such a big fan of photography too, in here is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, you should check that out. Trails Across Missouri, the Katy and Rock Island by Dan Burkhart.
The correlation there is Dan and Connie Burkhart are incredible philanthropists now out of St. Louis, but Dan was like in the first, I want to say 100 employees at Edward Jones. So he had a close relationship with Ted and Pat Jones. And if you don't know the whole background on Edward Jones, like Ted was the second generation, but he moved to Mexico, Missouri, or just outside of Mexico, and he wanted to service rural America. So the very first Edward Jones office outside of St. Louis was in Mexico. And that's how it spread across the country, rural community to rural community. But him and Pat, they donated the $2.5 million to acquire the Katy Trail. So now, with them both being passed and gone, you've got their legacy being protected by others who, made a fortune through that relationship, which I think is super cool of Dan and Connie. That's amazing.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, I mean, Trophy Quest Outdoor Adventures. I'm on your Facebook page, and you got some banging bucks on Trails Cam. So you got some big boys down there. So
you got to make sure you book your hunt before Bob starts getting after the 15 pointers. I said you got to book your hunt before Bob gets out
half
there.
Down, and then we're just
So all right, actually, man. Thanks a lot, Bob.
I'm pretty filled up right now for deer season. So
we'll talk to you again soon, man. Thanks for doing this, and we will see you down the trail.
Thank you, guys. Take care.